Kingsley, as you kind of glance over, another flash of light off in the distance, backlit against another rising wave, and you see something in the wave. For a split second, as it kind of crashes over and diminishes, you see what you think look to be shoulders and a head. But they're humanoid and far larger than a person should be before the waves swell up again, and it's gone. You look back, just as a massive hand slams onto the deck of the ship.
No.
5 fingers in this humanoid hand immediately glances. You kind of step back out of the way, kind of drifting about 10 feet off the ground, instinctually flying backward as a humanoid head, about 10, 15 feet almost in width, begins to climb up, looking just over the ridge. You can see long, wet, scraggly white hair, a kind of somewhat teal green-blue skin, pale, pupilless eyes, and a thick, heavy, knotted beard filled with kelp and all sorts of broken materials that just drifted to the sea.
Kingsley, fire the cannons!
Kneel up! Now!
You hear the cannons, many of them splashing into the waves beneath, but the creature you see kind of react from the impact, still clutching the side of the ship before it pulls its hand back, and you watch between its fingers, electrical energy kind of gathering up, and it throws this massive lightning spear that heads right towards you and arcing behind you. 61 points of lightning damage to you, Jester, and 30 points of lightning damage to you, Fjord. As this lightning strike just arcs past both of you, slams into the other side of the ship, and just kind of dissipates. You notice other shadows beginning to climb on board, smaller creatures, other what looks to be humanoid entities begin to kind of board up the
Make
side
ready,
of the
we've
deck.
got company. Draw weapons!
They're humanoid-like as they kind of clamber over, but you see these like long, thin tendrils that kind of come out of their head that dangle behind them. You watch as their faces, what little glimpses you see in the low light here, look humanoid but without a nose.
I'm going to, with a big grin, head right towards the first one.
You see it's like screeching its inner throat itself. There's these layers of like fleshy rings that are squeezing together, almost like a very visible vocal cord.
Fucking basic, and I'm going straight into it.
Go for it. Great. So that first strike, right through. You cut deeply into it. One creature kind of floats up, kind of gliding in the air, humanoid like the others, the same kind of long tendrils escaping from the back of its head, but it has like a tattered cloak that kind of drifts and strips from its back. What you can see now to be a extremely tall, extremely strong giant that is climbing up the side of the ship, larger than any giant you've ever seen or probably heard of, shouts out in this deep, resonant, bassy voice that quakes the wood you stand on.
Where is it, traitor? Where is the key?
The creature that now drifted up off the side of the ship, kind of floating in the air.
You made blasphemy of their gifts, and your arrogance will cost you all that you love, unless you do as Thornum commands.
And rushes, gliding over in your direction. The giant takes its turn, angrily growling as it brings one arm up, down onto the center of the deck of the ship. As the impact slams the deck of the ship, the wood splinters up, leaving a crater where it was. The middle of the ship's deck now is broken downward about 10 or so feet, where the arm just pushed into it. You see Kingsley, blade out, is currently facing off with one of these wounded creatures. You see about 7 of them clambering up at different parts of the ship. You see Fjord is kind of 10 feet off the ground and a little ways back.
I'm going to run up to the giant and touch his hand.
Do it, you rush up.
Maybe I should let go. And I'm going to inflict wounds.
That pulse of dark energy spreads from your fingers into the veins of this entity, this massive, meaty, kind of blue-green hand. As you grasp it, you watch the black shoot up, and all the veins in the hand, thick and thin, which on this scale are still massive, all immediately become visible as this dark, kind of awful black tar material kind of pulses through the bloodstream. As you do so, the hand kind of, the other arm grasps the side, and this comes up and almost like seems to shake it. As the hand that's up in the air, like squash, slaps you onto the deck, and you are pinned and grappled for a minute. That brings us now to the rest of the Scion's turns. 2 are rushing up to you, Jester. One of them rushes up behind and double strikes Jester from behind, and you watch as the impact of it sends her chest forward and she slides like into the wet surface of the ship for a second, now unconscious.
I use 60 feet of my fly speed to Superman towards Jester as I see her fall unconscious.
Rocket over to the body.
And I reach out and cast Cure Wounds as soon as I reach her.
Heal you back to consciousness at 35.
Amazing.
I look at Jester and I say, forgive me. And I will push up off the deck and reach into the bag of holding and pull out the cloven crystal, the third eye.
Okay. The minute you pull it out and present itself, you watch all of the Scions, the ones that are clambering and attacking other crew members, all of a sudden just stop and stare and look over in that direction. The one that's flying in the air that had initially tried to entrap you with the magic kind of drifts and looks down at you, and the giant, both of its hands kind of dig in deeper into the ship.
Is there a plan? Please, there's a plan. What are you holding?
The giant now, like, both of its arms push up, and it's doing like you can see now past its shoulders and its torso, this like heavy, intricate breastplate across its chest that is covered in kelp. Its voice kind of deeply billowing out and shaking the ship once more.
Relinquish the key and be spared a cold, forgotten grave below.
The mage that's kind of floating above you drifts down and puts out its hand and goes,
Give it to me.
It's not your turn! It's not your turn! It's not your turn!
Wise move.
I'll see you again.
and drifts back at a large arc and begins to direct itself back over the side of the ship. The rest of the Scions begin to pull away, jumping off the ship into the stormy waters below. The giant. Beneath the boat. The whole ship lurches again. A third time, and you hear now on the deck a bunch of the wood beginning to like strain and pop. You can hear the water rushing in from below, and the sides of it, you can see where the railing is. It's splintering upward.
Okay.
Something is impacting it from below.
Worst case scenario, we've got to do something. You've never saw this before. I pull out a thing. I pull out a small box, and I say, "Abandon ship, gather the crew," and I toss it off, and it folds into a small boat.
At that moment, as you're answering this question, the ship cracks open the center of it, a massive teal fist emerging from the center of the deck of the ship. The entire wood lurches upward, the ship itself breaking now in two around it. The impact of this sends you flying off the ship into the ocean around you, lightning still off in the distance. As you all kind of come up from the top of the ocean, but you can breathe, thankfully, though the waves are still pulling you around. You kind of glance about. There is no light source beyond the flashes of lightning, and you're not entirely certain where your comrades at the moment are.
Holding the Star Razor, I'll just cast Fairy Fire up into the sky, so it just...
It kind of creates this cloud of faint, kind of pale green energy that kind of drifts around. As it hits the surface of the water and kind of illuminates the space around it, you can see there are a handful of survivors. You see Orly is now kind of floating on the surface, the shell up, and it's just kind of drifting there in the water. As you gather the crew you can find into this ship, you notice unnaturally, rapidly, the storm's intensity begins to subside.